everybody, welcome back. We have a few things to look at in this video, including the possibility of a fairly large Gulf of Mexico hurricane. Although this does say we're not going to see anything until early September, we do have some information to look at to check out that possibility, as well as another storm brewing right behind it, making its way towards the Lesser Antilles Leeward Islands. Also, if you watch the bottom left quadrant of the sun, you're going to see a rapid fire set of explosions right there. Very, very interesting. We'll back that up a little bit and take a look at those as well. One nearly an X-class solar flare, and these sunspots here are beginning to move into Earth facing. In fact, we'll take a look at that now. Here is our SDO A1A satellite camera at 1600 angstroms. This allows us to see these sunspots fairly clearly, and we can tell right here that they are all on the southern half of the sun. Now, if you were to take the Earth and line it up, we are just below the equator as far as where we are lined up. So when you're looking at these visuals here, and especially sites like this, again, we'll move the Earth to where it should be as far as lined up with the sun. Many times these sunspots that are in the lower quadrant of the sun, even though they're not technically Earth facing, they are large enough to where when the energy does release off the sun, it covers a broad area, and that includes hits on the Earth's magnetic field. Now, one thing I want to take a look at here is this crazy coronal hole we're dealing with a sunspot right in the middle of it. You don't see this too often. A very interesting signature, and what's even more interesting is that's not even the sunspot that was releasing the energy we were looking at. That is this one right here, which is making its way slowly Earth facing. We'll be in about this spot in about 14 to 18 hours. And like I said, nearly an X-class solar flare just moments ago. In fact, the data is so new that we don't even have the charts that are reading exactly how big this was quite yet. I'm going to play this a few times so we can take a look at it, but that bottom left quadrant of the sun is very active and again moving towards Earth facing. Take a look at these two near X-class solar flares, or what look like X-class solar flares. With besides that visual and this GOES X-ray flux chart right here, you can see right here nearly an X-class solar flare, followed by another mid-grade M-class solar flare. So technically both of these are M-class, but the main point here is they were in such rapid succession, as you can see here, very close in proximity on this chart, that the energy from both of these are going to hit Earth around the same exact time. In fact, this is pretty interesting here because earlier in the day there was another flare that took place from sunspot 3089. That is the one here that is being circled and has that X shape right over it. And we are here on spaceweather.com, and it says right here, even before this took place, a sunspot AR303089 is crackling with a series of intensifying M-class solar flares. The strongest so far, which was today, registered in M7 and caused a shortwave radio blackout over much of Europe and Africa. And that was almost instantaneous. NASA's Solar Dynamic Observatory captured the extreme ultraviolet flash. And this is what's even more important, is this paragraph down here. We do not yet know if this explosion hurled a CME into space. That's how new this information is. Meanwhile, AR3089 appears to be on the verge of producing an X-class flare. That is a bold prediction to make because X-class solar flares, again, are extremely strong. In fact, they are the top class of solar flares that we have measurable on the GOES X-ray flux chart. After the X, it goes into another part of the chart that we do not see very often, if ever. So when we are starting to get up into these territories of solar activity, it is time to be on watch for a lot more than just radio blackouts. We're talking earthquakes, weather effects, you name it. The sun can do amazing things, and when the timing is right, if that energy is hitting Earth at the perfect time, based on past research and past situations, some crazy things may begin to take place. And more specifically for today, we're going to stick to the Yellowstone volcano area. And the reason for that is a group of earthquakes that is basically circling the massive area that this volcano, the Yellowstone supervolcano, covers in the western US. We're going to take a look at each one of these very quickly. A 3.7 taking place on August 25th. That was yesterday at 22:42 UTC time at 10 kilometers in depth, very shallow. And then early on today, August 26th, we had a 3.1 near Mammoth, Wyoming. This was 11.6 kilometers in depth, also very shallow considering the fact that it is around the Yellowstone area. And then of course we had this one that was also yesterday around the same exact time as this first 3.7. So this first 3.7 was at 22:42 UTC on the 25th, and this one over here by Royal, Wyoming was also in the 22 hour of UTC time. This one was at 22:10. So two rapid succession earthquakes surrounding the outside of Yellowstone, with one in between that took place today, while keeping in mind that these earthquakes took place during a rise in our solar activity, basically starting at the beginning of the 25th, and a gradual rise has been taking place ever since. So as we always try to explain here on the channel, is when we are getting hit with that solar wind, that strong sun activity, and it is hitting the Earth's magnetic field, we need to be aware and watch for earthquakes in weaker parts of the Earth. We all know the southwestern Pacific is a very prone area for large earthquakes, expect to see those there, but we also get earthquakes in other parts of the world. And it's just a little interesting how the beginning of that energy hitting Earth may very well be the cause for this rapid succession of earthquakes near the Yellowstone volcano. Now, for those of you that don't know, just taking a quick look at a chart of what the supervolcano at Yellowstone could possibly do, you could see that the actual volcano itself in part covers 3 different states. We got Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, all basically sharing the main part of Yellowstone. Now, you're also looking at these charts that show the massive amount of ash that would be released from this volcano if it does erupt. I am in no way saying that the Yellowstone volcano is about to erupt. I'm just showing activity near and around the area and just giving those of you who don't know too much about this volcano or where it is. But this is a very, very prone area to earthquakes, as well as a lot of concern when we start seeing earthquakes in those upper 3s. Like we just discussed on the USGS, a 3.7 took place. That's a fairly large earthquake to have around this area and to have that shallow at 10 kilometers. And now looking at the LASCO coronagraphs, it looks like we're getting some updated information here. So you're looking at the time down here, 8:26, about 10:48 UTC. As we move forward, we could see this final explosion take place. That's fairly large right there. In fact, let's go back and hit play and let it play on its own. There you see it leaving the surface of the sun beyond those diagrams that keep the brightness away so we can actually see what's going on around the sun rather than being blinded by the actual light of the sun itself. Now, this is a whole lot of energy to be dealing with. Not only do we have this sunspot right here erupting in rapid succession, we have the coronal hole with a sunspot in the middle of it. Again, you can see that highlighted in the A1A 193 angstrom chart. A very interesting look right there. Again, you do not see that too often. So not only do we have the coronal hole stream launching energy at Earth, we have the sunspot in the middle that could also erupt at any time. And on top of that, we also have the one sunspot that is about to be leaving Earth facing but still active. In fact, if we take manual control of this video here and we start moving towards current time, we could see that one flash right there on August 25th. That was just yesterday. While this right side sunspot is also active, you're going to see a few flickers from it as well as it's turning away from Earth. But now what we got as far as situations, there's another explosion right there, is the coronal hole stream with the sunspot in the middle and this now becoming Earth-facing sunspot. Again, even though we are just a little below the equator, these sunspots are very much capable of launching this energy directly at Earth. And we also cannot forget about the 3 above us as well. So we're almost sandwiched in between all these sunspots at the same time. And then towards the end of the video, that second and last flash right there, even closer to an X-class flare. So long story short, my friends, is we have a lot to look out for as far as earthquake watches and things of that nature. I'm going to be making some other videos detailing each of these situations individually, including the hurricane situation. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but we do have these labeled as 20 to 30% chance of cyclone formation, and as early as September 1st, we could see the tropical storm / category 1 just underneath Cuba if everything stays the same as it is. We know things change very fast when it comes to the weather world, but this is the data that we have as of right now. And we are in that peak hurricane time. September 10th is the peak date, and we will certainly be watching that like a hawk. And one more thing I wanted to point out to you, a pretty rare situation taking place. We're looking at Tropical Storm Tokaj. Yes, that's the name, Tokaj, and it's a tropical storm moving from the western Pacific, in fact, the northwestern Pacific, as you can see in this spaghetti chart here, moving underneath the chain islands of Alaska and then under Alaska itself, almost towards the west coast of the United States. Now, you don't see this too often. We do get pretty big weather events that do involve counterclockwise spinning storms like this, but you really don't see them labeled too much as tropical storms or any sort of tropical activity, but yet here we are. In fact, this system is hard to even find on the GFS chart. Now, I'm assuming this low pressure system right here is what they are talking about. This chart has not been updated quite yet, but as we move into August 27th and 28th, we kind of see it break up. We really don't see much taking place as far as formation. Again, that may change when the updated data comes out, but as of right now, we are looking at literally a tropical storm riding those chain islands of Alaska, moving towards Alaska itself, and then Western Canada and the United States. We will certainly be watching to see what happens with that. With that said, my friends, that is the video for today. Again, I'm going to be breaking down these situations individually, but I want to give you a large group of information since we haven't talked in a few days. But I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Shout out to Canada, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye. Stop right there, my friends. If you have not already, click that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Click all and you will get all notifications from this channel. And trust me, you won't be disappointed.